Ben Anderson went back to Afghanistan to see the war-torn country that we're leaving behind. This is his debrief.
It's about as bleak as I've ever seen it. I've covered it a few times since the US withdrew, and it's been very bad. But in this case, we were with 4 different armed groups, and within hours or days at most of us leaving them, many of them, 23 I think in total, were dead. And I've never known it to be that bad before. It's very difficult to know who's pro-Taliban, anti-Taliban, who is Taliban. You know, the US policy was always about persuading the local population to go with the government and not with the Taliban, but often the local population are the Taliban. They're not seen as these foreign bogeymen who have come from outside. They're people who are fighting for their home, their local area, and sometimes fighting to protect themselves and their families from a highly corrupt government or police force. I'd wager that the local population has many interactions with the Taliban, and in many cases is the Taliban. I mean, it's very common now to hear stories of families that have one son in the Taliban, one son in the police, one son in the Afghan local police, just to hedge their bets, or just to see who can get an income, or even have as many people on all sides as possible so that if one is killed, there's still income coming from somewhere else. The opium trade was a stark reminder of that as well. Most of the opium farmers we spoke to have a loan against the next year's opium crop from the Taliban. So that relationship already exists. They're beholden to the Taliban, and you know, we were never going to be able to get in between that if their entire livelihood depends on the Taliban. I don't think the Taliban need that much arms and funding. Their slice of the opium trade, for example, is very small. You know, there are taxes paid, but you know, these are guys who depend on the local community for food and shelter. You know, they have RPGs and AKs and basic IEDs and not much else. So, you know, it's not this international criminal multi-billion-dollar network. They don't need that much. They get what they need very easily. I always thought that the Afghan security forces and the local militias would be in something of a bloody stalemate with the Taliban. On the recent visit, everyone we visited said that the Taliban were better equipped than them and better supported than them. They were complaining they were getting no support whatsoever from the central government in Afghanistan. And the stuff they showed us were, you know, old AK-47s, very basic, big machine guns, if they had them at all. And perhaps most shockingly of all, they're driving around in beaten-up old Toyota Corollas. If you'd have said to a US Marine or soldier 2 or 3 years ago, drive around Helmand province in a Toyota Corolla, he would have thought you were insane. They never left the safety of the bases in anything but a $1 million bomb-proof truck. So, you know, I've gone from thinking it was a 50-50 fight between the Taliban and the Afghan security forces to thinking that the Taliban appear to have the upper hand. And, you know, that's why I think that many places in the south and the east could fall to the Taliban this summer. I think the effort to train an Afghan security force and create an Afghan government who was able to take on the job of fighting the Taliban, providing security on their own, has failed, and failed spectacularly. And I think everyone realizes that. And now the policy is just to prevent absolute catastrophe. So prevent the fall of Kabul, for example. But it feels now like there's no serious effort at all to train and arm the Afghan security forces to anything like the standard that's needed to take on the Taliban. There are some troops near Kabul training Afghan security forces, but the Afghan army and police who are actually fighting the Taliban have got nothing and have had nothing for 18 months. And that's why now there are more Afghan policemen and soldiers being killed than there have ever been since the war began. The latest statistics say that there's an Afghan soldier or policeman being killed every 90 minutes in Afghanistan, and those numbers are so high that it's not sustainable. I mean, everywhere we went, the people that we were with were either dead or severely injured or kidnapped within hours or days of us being with them. And I've never experienced that before in Afghanistan. I've never experienced you know, a situation where everyone that I spent time with was shot or blown up or kidnapped within hours or days of me filming with them. And there were others that didn't even make it into the film. Even on our way out of Helmand, we drove from Helmand to Kandahar, and we were told that we were going to get picked up by some of Raziq's men. He's a notorious police chief in Kandahar, the Taliban killer, he's called. So I thought they'd be very good men. They picked us up at, I think, 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning. They were stoned, they were drunk. There were just 4 of them. They were laughing and joking all the way. As we drove through Taliban-controlled areas, surrounded by white flags, they dropped us off. We were relieved to make it to Kandahar safely. They drove back, and when they got back to the point where they'd picked us up, they were involved in an ambush, and 2 of them ended up in a coma.